Once upon a time, there was a woman named Mama Ezinne who lived with her two daughters, Olamma and Adugo. Mama Ezinne worked hard to support her family and often told her daughters that money is important for a happy life. Olamma, the older sister, believed in love, kindness, and true happiness rather than just focusing on wealth. Adugo, the little sister, was very easily influenced and always wanted to make their mother happy. She really believed in Mama Ezinne's ideas and desired a life full of wealth and luxury. As her daughters got older, Mama Ezinne became even more emphatic with her warnings. She often gathered them in their cozy living room, which was furnished with the best furniture she could afford, and repeated her favorite saying, "Remember, my dear daughters, love is wonderful, but it won't provide food on the table or buy you beautiful clothes made of silk and lace. Marry a rich man and you will never know sorrow." Olamma would listen patiently, but never voiced her disagreement during these lectures. However, in her heart, she knew that love and happiness were more precious than gold. She dreamed of finding a partner who valued her for who she was, not for her dowry or social status. Adugo paid close attention to everything her mother said. She looked up to her mother and followed her advice exactly. Adugo always dreamed of marrying a rich man and living in luxury. When she grew up, she started dating a boy named Ndidi Amaka, who came from a wealthy family, but their relationship was full of ups and downs. Ndidi, being the rich boy in the village, was very popular with all the girls. Many times, Adugo would find him with other girls. When she confronted him, he would say,
"I only love you, Adugo. The other girls just follow me around."
Adugo would forgive him, even though it hurt her. Sometimes, Ndidi would accuse her of not trusting him, and she would end up begging for his forgiveness. Despite all the heartache, Adugo was deeply in love with Ndidi. Her mother approved of their relationship and often told Adugo's sister, Olamma, to choose a good match like Adugo did. One day, Adugo found Ndidi laughing and talking with another girl. Her heart sank, but Ndidi quickly said,
"Adugo, she means nothing to me. You are the one I love."
Adugo wanted to believe him so badly that she nodded and tried to smile, even though her heart was breaking. Ndidi and his family moved to the city, and Adugo never heard from him again. She was left heartbroken because he was her first love. Adugo felt like her world had crumbled. Every day, she hoped to see Ndidi smile or hear his voice, but he was gone. She would sit by the window, looking out at the village road, wishing he would come back. Her heart ached, and she couldn't understand why he left without a word. In the same village lived a young, hardworking man named Chinu. Despite not being well established, his unwavering dedication and sincere heart made him stand out. Chinedu's love for Adugo was profound. He would do anything for her. Many villagers warned him to forget about Adugo, citing her rudeness towards the less fortunate. Yet, Chinedu believed that his love could get to her. Adugo, influenced by Mama Ezinne's teachings, saw Chinedu as a nuisance. She would often publicly disgrace him whenever he tried to express his feelings. Chinedu remained steadfast in his quest to win her heart. He believed that one day, Adugo would see past his poverty and recognize his genuine affection. One day, Chinedu decided to approach Olamma for advice. He admired her gentle nature and hoped she could help him understand how to win Adugo's heart. Olamma, seeing Chinedu's sincerity, decided to speak to her sister.
"Adugo, love isn't about wealth. Chinedu's heart is pure and he truly cares for you. Mama's teachings are important, but they aren't everything. Happiness comes from love, not just riches."
Adugo rolled her eyes and completely dismissed her sister's words. One sunny afternoon, Chinedu decided to visit Adugo at her home. With a heart full of hope, he approached the well-maintained house. As he knocked on the door, he rehearsed his words, hoping to finally make Adugo see the depth of his love. When Chinedu entered, Mama Ezinne looked at him with narrowed eyes and asked, "Why are you here?" Her tone revealed her disapproval. Chinedu swallowed nervously, but stood his ground.
Good afternoon, Mama Ezinne. I came to see Adugo.
Mama Ezinne scoffed and shouted,
Adugo, come and see who has come to disgrace himself.
Adugo appeared, her expression filled with annoyance.
Chinedu, why can't you understand? You have nothing to offer me. Leave us alone.
Mama Ezinne joined in a conversation.
You dare to come to my house? A poor man like you has no place here. My daughter dates the likes of Ndidi Amaka, so leave and never come back.
Chinedu was so embarrassed that he was speechless. Tears stung his eyes, but he refused to let them fall. Olamma saw Chinedu living in despair and decided to catch up with him after he left the house.
Chinedu, wait,
she called out. Chinedu stopped and turned, surprised to see Olamma.
Olamma, what are you doing here?
Olamma's eyes were filled with regret.
I'm so sorry for what Mama and Adugo did. You didn't deserve that.
Chinedu sighed, trying to smile.
Thank you, Olamma. Your kindness means a lot to me.
From that day forward, Olamma and Chinedu became friends and began to spend more time together. They often met by the river, sharing their dreams and hopes. Olamma admired Chinedu's hard-working nature and his unwavering kindness. Chinedu, in turn, appreciated Olamma's gentle spirit and understanding heart. As they spent more time together, their friendship grew stronger and they started to have feelings for each other. Olamma's belief in the power of love became stronger and Chinedu found comfort in her presence. One evening, as they sat by the river, Chinedu turned to Olamma. Olamma, you've become very special to me. I never thought I'd find someone who understands and supports me like you do. Olamma smiled.
Chinedu, I've always believed that love and kindness are more important than wealth. You've shown me what true love looks like.
Their hands met, and at that moment, they knew they had found something precious. Despite Mama Ezinne's teachings and Adugo's dismissiveness, love had blossomed between Chinedu and Olamma. The love between Chinedu and Olamma quickly became the talk of the village. People admired their relationship and how they defied the social expectations set by Mama Ezinne. The news eventually reached Mama Ezinne herself, and she was furious. One evening, she called Olamma looking serious.
Olamma,
she began,
I have heard disturbing news about you and that poor boy, Chinedu. You must stop whatever affair you have going on with him immediately. Do you understand?
Olamma stood her ground, her eyes meeting her mother's.
Mama, I love Chinedu. He may not be rich, but he has a good heart. I cannot and will not end our relationship because of his financial status.
Mama Ezinne's face reddened with anger.
How dare you defy me? After everything I've taught you, you choose to disgrace this family by being with someone like him? You will end this nonsense and you will face the consequences.
Adugo, who had been listening from the doorway, burst into laughter.
Olamma, you really are a fool. A poor man has nothing to offer you but misery. Enjoy your fairy tale while it lasts.
Olamma ignored her sister's mockery and turned to leave the room. She would not let her mother's anger or her sister's scorn deter her from the love she had found. Chinedu and Olamma continued to meet in secret, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. Olamma found peace and strength in Chinedu's unwavering support, and Chinedu was inspired by Olamma's courage to stand up for their love. One day, as they sat by the river, Chinedu took Olamma's hands in his.
Olamma, I know it's hard for you, facing your mother's anger and your sister's ridicule, but I promise you, I will work even harder to prove my worth. I will build a life for us, a life filled with love and happiness.
Olamma smiled, tears of joy glistening in her eyes.
Chinedu, I believe in you. Together, we can overcome any obstacle.
As the months passed, Chinedu worked tirelessly, saving every penny he could. His dedication and love for Olamma fueled his determination. Finally, on a cool evening under the stars, Chinedu gathered his courage and proposed to Olamma. With tears of joy and a heart full of love, she accepted. Olamma was extremely happy, but also worried. She knew her mother would strongly object to the marriage. Despite her fears, she was ready to stand by Chinedu, even if it meant leaving her family behind. The next morning, Olamma approached her mother in the living room.
Mama, Chinedu has proposed to me and I have accepted. We wish to marry.
Mama Ezinne looked very angry. Without warning, she slapped Olamma hard across the face.
How dare you defy me?
She screamed, her voice filled with venom.
I have told you time and time again that you must marry a wealthy man. This pauper will never be welcome in this house.
Olamma held her cheek, tears streaming down her face, but her resolve remained unshaken.
Mama, I love him. He makes me happy, and that's all that matters.
Mama Ezinne's fury only intensified.
If you do not end this relationship, I will disown you. You will be dead to me and will have no place in this house.
Olamma's heart ached at her mother's harsh words, but she knew she could not abandon Chinedu.
If that is your decision, then so be it. I will live with Chinedu and build a life of love and happiness, even if it means without your blessing.
Adugo, watching from the doorway, laughed mockingly.
Good luck living in poverty, Olamma. You will come crawling back soon enough.
Ignoring her sister's taunts, Olamma packed her belongings. She felt a mixture of sadness and relief as she left the house she had called home for so long. Chinedu was waiting for her by the river, his eyes filled with concern and love.
Olamma, are you sure about this?
He asked, holding her close. She nodded, determination shining in her eyes.
I am sure we will face whatever comes our way together.
The village buzzed with the news of Olamma's departure and her impending marriage to Chinedu. Many villagers admired her bravery, while others whispered about the disgrace she had brought upon her family. Mama Ezinne, consumed by anger and disappointment, refused to speak of Olamma, considering her daughter dead to her. Olamma and Chinedu left the village and traveled to the city, where they hoped to start anew. They found humble jobs and slowly built a life together, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. Despite the difficulties, they were happy, for they had each other. Back in the village, years passed, and Adugo continued to adhere to Mama Ezinne's teachings. She remained as dismissive and rude as ever to any man who didn't have the wealth she sought. Her beauty and charm attracted many suitors, but her harsh attitude quickly drove them away. One day, a man named Obinna came to the village. He was different from the other men Adugo had encountered. He was well-dressed, drove a sleek car, and spoke with confidence of someone who had achieved success. Obinna had moved to the city years ago and had made a name for himself in business. Now, he was visiting the village to see his family and perhaps find a life partner. When Obinna saw Adugo, he was immediately captivated by her beauty. He approached her with a charming smile, introducing himself. Adugo, seeing his wealth and status, was instantly interested. She smiled back, her eyes filled with admiration. Their relationship quickly blossomed, much to the delight of Mama Ezinne. She saw in Obinna the ideal suitor for her daughter, wealthy, successful, and able to provide the luxurious life she had always dreamed of for Adugo. Immediately, Mama Ezinne hastened the affair and arranged the marriage for them. Adugo and Obinna were wedded in a grand ceremony that became the talk of the village. Mama Ezinne beamed with pride as she watched her daughter marry a wealthy man, believing that she had secured a prosperous future for her. After the wedding, Obinna took Adugo to the city, where they began their new life together. For the first few years, everything seemed perfect. Adugo reveled in the luxury and comfort that Obinna provided. She adorned herself with the finest clothes, attended the most exclusive parties, and basked in the admiration of those around her. However, as time went on, Obinna began to notice things about Adugo that he had overlooked before. Her rudeness to the household staff, her extravagant spending without consideration, and her lack of empathy for those less fortunate began to weigh on him. Despite his wealth, Obinna had always valued kindness and humility, traits that Adugo seemed to lack. One day, Obinna faced a significant financial setback in his business. The once thriving company encountered unexpected losses, and Obinna found himself struggling to maintain the lifestyle they had grown accustomed to. Adugo's reaction to the situation was anything but supportive. She scolded Obinna for the loss, demanding that he fix the problem immediately. She continued to spend lavishly, disregarding Obinna's pleas for moderation during their difficult time. Obinna later realized that Adugo's love for him was conditional, based solely on his ability to provide her with material wealth. He began to reflect on his choices and the life he had envisioned versus the reality he was living. Over the next few months, Obinna worked tirelessly to stabilize his business, but the strain of the financial troubles and the growing rift between him and Adugo began to take its toll. The once vibrant and luxurious life they led was now overshadowed by tension and dissatisfaction. Adugo's treatment of Obinna became increasingly cruel as their financial troubles deepened. She began inviting her wealthy friends over to their now much smaller and humbler home, flaunting her disdain for their situation. She would mockingly introduce Obinna as the man who lost everything and make cutting remarks about his inability to provide. One evening, during a particularly humiliating dinner party, Adugo made a spectacle out of Obinna's failures.
Can you believe this man used to be successful?
She sneered, laughter erupting around the table.
Now, he can barely keep us afloat. It's a miracle we are not out on the streets.
Obinna's face burned with shame, but he remained silent, knowing that arguing would only escalate the situation. Adugo also began to withhold affection and respect from Obinna, flirting with other rich men and making sure Obinna sees it. She would throw tantrums over the smallest inconveniences, demanding he fix problems that were beyond his control.
Obinna, why is there no imported wine? You can't even get that right.
She would scream, smashing a glass against the wall. In her desperation to maintain her image, Adugo started secretly taking out loans in Obinna's name, further plunging them into debt. When the creditors began to call, she would hand the phone to Obinna, forcing him to face the mounting accusations and threats.
Deal with your mess, Obinna,
she would say coldly.
This is all your fault anyway.
The emotional abuse took a toll on Obinna's health. He began losing weight. His hair started to gray prematurely, and he often felt a crushing sense of despair. Despite his best efforts to communicate with Adugo, she dismissed his attempts to reconcile, insisting that their plight was entirely his responsibility. One evening, as Obinna returned home after a particularly grueling day, he was shocked to find Mama Ezinne in their living room because Adugo never told him that she was coming. But what stood out the most was the anger in her eyes.
Look who we have here.
Mama Ezinne's voice growled as she glared at Obinna.
The once successful man who's now a complete failure.
Obinna tried to remain calm despite the insult.
My daughter is accustomed to luxury and opulence,
said Mama Ezinne.
And here you are, dragging her into the dirt. You should have known better than to try to keep up with a woman who has standards.
When Obinna was about to reply, Adugo walked into the room. She seemed uninterested as she watched the conversation, slightly amused.
Mama, you are here? Did you come to witness how my husband is failing miserably?
Mama Ezinne looked at Adugo with a mixture of approval and satisfaction.
Yes, dear. I needed to see for myself the man who has let you down so completely. How can you tolerate such disgrace?
Adugo looked pleased and amused.
It's actually quite entertaining to watch him struggle as he tries to save whatever is left of his dignity. This man is a burden,
said Mama Ezinne.
And now you have to deal with it. How could you expect anything more from someone who has lost everything?
Obinna found Mama Ezinne's harsh words unbearable, and that made him very sad. As their lives took a drastic turn, Obinna began to notice Adugo leaving for parties and social events alone. When he questioned her about going by herself, when they were both invited, she coldly replied,
I'm embarrassed to be seen with a poor man. People are just inviting you out of pity. You don't belong there.
One day, Adugo walked towards the gate and got into another man's luxurious car that was honking for her. Obinna watched, his heart heavy with frustration and sorrow. That evening, Obinna waited anxiously for Adugo to return home. When she finally did, she was drunk. Filled with anger, he confronted her about the man who had picked her up, but Adugo dismissed his concerns with indifference. Things deteriorated further. Obinna would come back from work to an empty home. The woman who once greeted him with a hug was now nowhere to be found, returning late into the night. Despite his constant complaints and pleas for her to change, Adugo remained unmoved. One night, as Obinna confronted her again, Adugo snapped,
I'm tired of pretending. I found a real man, someone who knows how to take care of a woman. His wealth is unimaginable, beyond anything you've ever seen. I'm leaving this poverty behind,
she said, rushing upstairs to pack her things. As she called someone to pick her up, she handed Obinna a set of papers she had been holding.
I've made up my mind. I can't stay in this marriage any longer. The life I dreamed of is slipping away, and I can't bear this strain any longer,
Adugo declared. Obinna's heart sank.
Adugo, please, don't do this. I still love you. We can walk through this. We can rebuild everything together,
he pleaded. But Adugo's eyes were cold and unyielding.
Love isn't enough to fix what's broken. I want a divorce, and I won't change my mind. If you don't sign the papers, I promise I'll make your life a living hell.
The finality in her voice was unmistakable, and Obinna knew her resolve was unshakable. His heart ached as he looked at the woman he once loved so deeply. Fighting for their marriage seemed futile. The cruelty and manipulation had taken their toll. With a heavy heart and a sense of helpless resignation, Obinna signed the divorce papers. The act felt like signing away the last remnants of his happiness. As he did so, Adugo looked at him with a mix of satisfaction and indifference.
Good,
she said coldly.
Now I can finally leave this mess behind and go to my man's mansion.
With that, Adugo packed her belongings and left the house. As Adugo hurried to the gate, Ndidi stepped out of his car to help her with her bags and belongings, which she was struggling to carry. Ndidi, the same Ndidi she dated years back in the village, opened the trunk and asked,
What's with all the bags? Are you going somewhere?
Adugo, busy throwing her stuff into the car, replied,
I'm coming to stay with you, love. I'm leaving that poor man.
Ndidi, overwhelmed and at a loss for words, just stared at her, unsure of what to say. They got into the car and Ndidi drove in silence, taking deep breaths and resting his hand on his chin. They arrived at Ndidi's mansion, a place Adugo had only visited once during a big party where she had reunited with him. The days that followed were filled with parties and a lavish lifestyle. Adugo felt on top of the world, basking in the wealth she had always dreamed of. She thought about how pleased her mother would be.
I'm not a failure after all,
she would say to herself, relaxing in a jacuzzi and sipping champagne. Ndidi was often home hosting parties. Even when he left the house, it was only for brief outings.
You must be very rich. I never see you working,
Adugo would say while they lounged in the garden or swam in the pool.
But I am at work, and this is my workplace,
Ndidi would reply, making Adugo laugh. She would call him a funny man and say that if she were that rich, she wouldn't work either. One day, Ndidi said he had to run to the shops.
Wait for me, let's go together. I need to buy an outfit for tomorrow's party,
Adugo said, grabbing her bag to follow him. At the clothing store, Ndidi picked his items while Adugo carelessly chose hers, ordering the shop assistants around. Ndidi watched quietly. Madam, you must be very rich. I've never seen anyone buy so many expensive clothes at once, a shop assistant remarked, trying to make a conversation.
My man over there is rich. Not that it's any of your business. Now follow me quietly,
Adugo snapped, making the assistant look down, embarrassed. At the counter, Ndidi put his 2 items first. When the cashier started scanning Adugo's clothes, Ndidi shouted,
Wait, what are you doing? I only bought these 2 items.
He took out his wallet to pay for his things. Adugo, surprised, told him she wanted those clothes, but Ndidi said he couldn't afford all those items. He picked one small dress from the pile and paid for it. Adugo, shocked, asked why he couldn't pay for the clothes if he was rich. Ndidi told her they never agreed he would buy her clothes. They left the shop with Adugo running behind Ndidi, complaining about the embarrassment. Ndidi, equally upset, said,
How can you pick clothes you can't afford without telling me?
Back at the mansion, they continued arguing, neither listening to the other.
You're just a spoiled boy, a player who got his way with every girl because you came from a rich family.
Adugo didn't finish her sentence because Ndidi slapped her hard.
Don't you ever talk to me like that again, you hear me?
Ndidi said, walking upstairs. After a while, he came back, dressed to go to a party, making it clear he was going alone. He returned the next morning, drunk, and slept until the afternoon, ignoring Adugo. Later, Adugo apologized to Ndidi. He hesitated, but eventually forgave her. They continued their partying lifestyle for 2 months. One day, while Ndidi was out running errands, Adugo was dancing in the house when a classy woman in her mid-40s walked in and turned off the music.
How dare you enter here and switch off my music?
Adugo shouted, turning it back up. The woman slapped Adugo, took the remote, and turned off the music completely.
What are you doing in my house? Who is this?
She demanded, calling out Ndidi's name. She started walking upstairs, but Adugo blocked her.
What are you doing? Ndidi is my man. Respect yourself. You are too old for him.
They began shouting at each other. Ndidi rushed in, kneeling slightly and begging,
Madam, please forgive me.
Madam? Who is your madam, Ndidi?
Adugo screamed, confused. The woman, now furious, asked Ndidi to explain. He revealed he was left to look after the mansion by his boss and his wife, the woman standing before them, while they traveled overseas for 3 months. Ndidi begged for forgiveness, saying he was just helping Adugo with shelter since her husband kicked her out.
Is this what you do after we trusted you with our property? Your uncle gave you a chance when no one else would. You've proven your father right. You can never hold a job for a year.
The woman said, looking at Adugo in disgust and chasing them both out.
Oh no, she didn't even let me take my clothes. Ndidi, what happened to you? I thought you were a billionaire.
Adugo cried.
Well, you thought wrong. I never said I was one. I was disowned long ago, and my father lost all his businesses. Now, leave me alone and go your way.
Ndidi replied, walking away in a busy street. Adugo stood there with no money and no clothes. She begged a keke napep driver to take her home, promising her mother would pay him. Adugo settled back into her mother's house with a mixture of relief and bitterness. Mama Ezine welcomed her with open arms, offering her comfort and reassurance, but that didn't last for long. As the months went by, Mama Ezine, increasingly frustrated by the lack of a wealthy suitor for Adugo, grew more critical.
Adugo,
She would admonish,
I didn't raise you to live in your mother's house. You need to find a way to secure a future for yourself. I won't always be here for you.
Adugo felt the pressure and the sting of her mother's reprimands. She started to think about her past decisions. The promise of a wealthy suitor, once so appealing, now seemed hard to reach. She realized that her strong desire for wealth had made her unhappy and full of regret. Adugo went to the city to pursue a better life, but life there was harder than she expected. She worked hard doing manual labor to afford food. Her dreams of a flashy lifestyle seemed far away. On a very hot afternoon, while she was working at a construction site, she heard someone calling her name from far away. Adugo was surprised to see her sister, Olamma, in a fancy car, looking elegant and excited. Olamma's face was glowing. Overwhelmed with emotion, Adugo was taken aback as Olamma embraced her tightly. The years of separation and the harshness of her current life melted away in that moment. Adugo's eyes filled with tears as she knelt down on the dusty ground, her voice trembling as she spoke.
Olamma, I'm so sorry,
she said through her sobs.
I should have listened to you. I was wrong to ignore your advice and follow Mama's words blindly.
Olamma looked at her sister with a mixture of compassion and relief.
Adugo, what's done is done. We all make mistakes and learn from them. It's in the past now. What matters is that you've learned and grown.
Seeing the sincerity in Olamma's eyes, Adugo felt a glimmer of hope. Olamma invited her to their home, but Adugo hesitated for a moment. However, the warmth in Olamma's voice gave her courage. She nodded, and together they drove to Olamma and Chinedu's home. As they arrived, Adugo's anxiety began to rise again. She feared Chinedu might still harbor resentment or find it difficult to forgive her. But Olamma took her hand and led her inside. Chinedu was in the living room, and when he saw Adugo coming with Olamma, he was surprised, and immediately Adugo fell to her knees and begged Chinedu for forgiveness. Chinedu was moved, and he urged her to stand up, that all those things were in the past. Overwhelmed by Chinedu's kindness, Adugo felt a sense of relief. I'm truly sorry for everything. Chinedu nodded, understanding in his eyes.
We all have our paths to walk. What matters is that we learn from our experiences and move forward.
Adugo settled into her new life with Olamma and Chinedu, finding peace and comfort in their company. As she opened up to them about her past, she recounted the mistakes and regrets that weighed heavily on her heart. One evening, as she shared her sorrowful tales, particularly about how she had mistreated her former husband Obinna, tears began to stream down her cheeks. The pain and remorse of her actions were palpable. Olamma and Chinedu listened empathetically and offered her heartfelt advice.
Adugo,
Olamma said gently,
the past cannot be changed, but you can seek forgiveness and find peace. You should reach out to Obinna and make amends.
Chinedu nodded in agreement.
It's never too late to make things right. Reconciliation might not be easy, but it's a step towards healing.
Adugo took their words to heart and resolved to seek out Obinna, hoping to find a path to forgiveness and closure. One day, as Chinedu's friend was scheduled to visit, Adugo lent a helping hand to Olamma in preparing a feast for the guests. The kitchen was abuzz with activity, and Adugo was focused on her tasks when the doorbell rang. When the guests arrived, Adugo went to open the door for them. Her heart skipped a beat as she caught sight of Chinedu's friend. The room seemed to spin as her eyes met those of the man she had wronged, Obinna. The shock was overwhelming, and tears began to flow uncontrollably down her cheeks. It was Obinna, the very person she had mistreated in the past because he lacked the means to provide the life she wanted. Adugo stood frozen, her heart racing as she gazed at Obinna. He was no longer the man she had known. He had moved on with his life. Beside him were his new wife and their beautiful children. The sight was both a shock and a crushing blow to her heart. The room suddenly felt stifling, and before she could compose herself, the weight of her past mistakes became unbearable. Overwhelmed by emotion, Adugo's vision blurred, and she collapsed onto the floor as her world turned dark. When she regained consciousness, she was in a quiet corner of the house, surrounded by concerned faces. Olamma and Chinedu were there, their expressions a mix of worry and sympathy. Obinna had stepped outside with his family, giving Adugo some space. Days turned into weeks, and the encounter with Obinna left Adugo in a deep state of regret and sorrow. The reality of her past mistakes and the sight of Obinna's new family weighed heavily on her. Despite the support from Olamma and Chinedu, the emotional toll of her past actions kept her in a constant state of reflection and grief. As time went by, Adugo felt more and more alone. No one asked for her hand in marriage, and it seemed like she couldn't find a fresh start. In the end, Adugo ended up living by herself as she got older. Her life was a lonely reminder of the decisions she had made. She felt sorry about her past, and the fact that she didn't have a partner for the future made her feel even worse. She learned important lessons, but she had to live with the regret of her choices. The end.